And it's just really sad because this is not life. It's hard to live under these circumstances. You know, Ukrainian people do live, and you see people living a somewhat normal life, but it's not normal here. And it's just so sad that I've become accustomed to this and I just, change as a person. Russia, they want all of Ukraine, or they want it to be a satellite puppet state of Russia, similar to what Belarus. So basically no sovereignty. Ukraine wants sovereignty. And Ukraine is not willing to give up their sovereignty to Russia. And with everything that's going on in the US right now, I don't really like celebrating 4th of July anymore. I feel like kind of a little ashamed to be an American.
Our guest today is Corrie Nieto, an American influencer and journalist who moved to Ukraine in 2015. And he reports on the ground during the war how Ukrainians live here. Welcome to our program.
Oh, thank you so much, Sofia, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Corrie, you moved to Ukraine in 2015. And what make you that decision and why Ukraine specifically?
Okay, 2015. I mean, it was a string of events that led me to Ukraine. I don't regret any of it. I'm glad that, it brought me to this beautiful country. But anyways, it started in 2014, actually. So I was traveling across the US on my motorcycle. And so I took a month off work, and I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. So I was traveling across the US on my motorcycle, went from LA all the way to New York, and then to Canada, like Montreal, and then Toronto, and then back to the Midwest to LA. And I met such amazing people, and I was couch surfing along the way. And so I wanted to give back. So when I came back to LA, I was hosting couch surfers from different countries, and some of them from Ukraine, and most of them from Europe. Some were from Ukraine. And they'd always tell me, like, come to Europe, come to Ukraine, check it out. I know you'll have a great time. It's beautiful there. And so I just decided to, okay, next summer I will take some time off. Maybe I'll backpack around Europe and I'll check it out to see if they were right. And of course they were. But my boss didn't want to give me time off. So I'm like, okay, I'll just save up money and quit just on a whim. Saved up money, quit, came to Europe, was in Western Europe for 3 months, and I had to leave Western Europe because of the Schengen policy, 90 days. And so I came to Ukraine. I originally was doing volunteer work, so I was living and working with this family, helping them with their English. And it was just a village just south of Kyiv. So I was there for about a month, and then this guy offered me a job teaching English at a private school. And I had no experience before, but they said it's quite easy. You'll start with English practice, and then they'll train you, and you'll move up from there. And I said, okay, why not? And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll just stay a few more months, a year, and then I'll just go back to the US. I was there. I ended up teaching for 2 years. And then I was going to travel some more, but I met a girl. I decided to stay a bit longer. This is 2017 at the time, and I didn't want to teach English anymore. It wasn't really my thing, so I started to switch to IT companies. I was working for several IT companies, startup companies here in Ukraine. I really liked it. Then I was the head of sales for this Ukrainian IT outsourcing company. Then the war happens. Then I switched to media because my social media started to grow. And I got many opportunities for media companies here in Ukraine. And I just feel like my life is more fulfilled, just helping in some way to spread the truth about what's going on in Ukraine. So that's basically how I came here and what I'm doing here now.
A long story, and indeed you're living here for years. And I think the most interesting question for our viewers, what was it about Ukraine that really touched you, so you decided to stay? Maybe something specifically about the country.
Okay,
about the people.
About the people. Okay, it's mostly about the people. I always tell people, especially now, Ukrainians are the most interesting people in the world. Everyone has a story to tell. And this war affected so many lives. And what I do right now with my work, I mostly do human stories. So I like, going out, meeting with people, talking with them, and just trying to share their story so people can understand the struggle and what Ukrainians are going through and why it's important to keep supporting Ukraine. But when I came, I knew nothing about that. So I just came on a whim, and I was here. And, when I was in Western Europe, it was France. Sure, it's European, but it's similar to the US in some ways, especially when you go to like the UK or maybe the US. It's just similar, like, in some ways. Then when it came to Ukraine, it totally was different. I just feel like it was wanting to be on the level of, the US and Western Europe, but it's been, held down so much with what Russia has been doing to the country. And there was like, it just felt alive and it was moving in this direction. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to see it. And then I met such amazing people. And a lot of people ask me, what's the difference between mentality of like, American people and Ukrainian people? And the thing I can think of, and the thing I always tell people, is that people here are authentic. Whenever somebody feels a certain way, they will tell you. Whereas in the U.S., people aren't really that authentic. They'll be really nice to your face and just, "Hi, how are you?" small talk. But that's basically it. Whereas Ukrainians, if they don't like something or they don't feel comfortable or they really like you, they will let you know. And once you become a friend with Ukrainian people, it's a really strong bond, and I really love that. But the reason why I stayed was mostly because of the people. I made so many great friends here, and I just feel like I have a strong connection with that. And then I've traveled all across the country, and I just fell in love with it, and I can't imagine myself anywhere else. I haven't been in the U.S. in like 4 years now. I haven't even left Ukraine in about a year and a half. I'm overdue for a vacation. But I don't know, it's just something magical about this, and I've only started to realize it once I left the country. So whereas when I look back, I go, you know what, I really miss Ukraine. And I didn't know why, but now I know why. It's the people and the connections I made here.
That's interesting because today you're telling the world what's going on in Ukraine, about the war, and etc. But back in 2015, did you well understand what's going on in Ukraine? Because it was already the Russian invasion and occupation of Crimea and invasion in Donbass, and maybe was it clear enough for you that Russia is an aggressor?
Okay, so to be completely honest, I'm American education, and we know Ukraine, but it's in Eastern Europe somewhere maybe. Back then, people would associate Ukraine with Russia a lot, and nobody really kind of paid attention to Ukraine or what's going on in Ukraine until 2014. This is when Ukraine started to show up on people's radar. There was a revolution. Russia, it was a big deal during the Obama administration because Obama was really soft when Russia annexed Crimea and when they started to send their military people to start this fake uprising in Donetsk and Luhansk, in Donbass. And so this has started to come on people's radar. And there's this journalist, Simon Ostrovsky, I believe he's a Canadian journalist. I seen his video reports on Donbass, and it really got me interested in what's going on. In Ukraine. But anyways, besides that, I didn't really know too much about what was going on besides that. But I have like a funny story to tell. So when I was living in the US in 2014 and a few years before that, I was dating this Russian girl. We all make mistakes. that was my big mistake, I guess. No, I'm joking. But anyways, one time it was one of her friend's birthday. And, Russian people, when they move to the US, it seems like they always just hang out in their little Russian bubble. So it was her and a bunch of Russian people, and then it was like this one Ukrainian guy. And so we had this party at this club, then went back to a diner, and we were just having food. And this was around the same time that Donbass was being occupied and Crimea was annexed. And so they were talking about it, and the Ukrainian guy was saying, well, I don't agree that they just annexed Crimea and they're taking Donbass by force. It's not right. This is our land. We didn't agree to any of this. They said, and they were just defending Russia. They were saying, you know what? The people want to be part of Russia, so why not just take it? Didn't we have a vote there? And the guy was saying, it's an illegal referendum. You're like basically showing up to people's houses with guns, and you're saying, do you vote to be part of Russia or not? Of course it's by force. And so they said, but they want to be a part of Russia. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. Like, okay, it's their part of the world, their politics, just let it be. And then now coming back, living in Ukraine for so long, I look back on that like, are they sick? Are these people sick? They've lived in the U.S. for so long. They didn't accept any American values about what's right and wrong, and they still have this Russian mindset. It was so crazy to me, to experience that. So this is when it started to pop up on my radar. But now I know a lot more. Just living here for so long, and I understand the situation pretty well.
Another question, of course, following the topic of the war. In 2022, the full-scale war began. Why did you decide to stay here, especially during the full-scale war?
Okay, so like many people in Ukraine at the time, we didn't think that they were going to invade. So I was living in Kostyubinsky, which is this kind of small town just north of Kyiv. And it's right next to the Irpin Bucha area, because I'm sure people are familiar with these areas. So I was there, and it was a week before the invasion. I was at one of my friend's weddings. And people at the wedding, it's like a lot of foreign people, like, do you think they're going to invade? I was like, I don't think they're going to invade. And then everyone was just talking about it, like the whole wedding. Like, forget the bride and groom. It was about, are they going to invade or not? And towards the end of the wedding, one of my friends is very convincing. He said, you know what? I have friends working at the embassy. I think they're going to invade. They're already talking about leaving the embassy because something big is going to happen. And I told my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I said, hey, your family lives in Mukachevo. It's Western Ukraine, Zakarpatska Oblast. And I said, what if we just pack a bunch of our important stuff and then go to Mukachevo? And then we just stay there for a few weeks. If something happens, then we're safe because we're right next to the border. If nothing happens, then we'll just come back to Kyiv. And she said, sure. And so we packed our stuff and we went to Mukachevo, and then a week later they invaded. And if you're familiar with, geography of Ukraine, Zakarpattia and Mukachevo is as far west as you can be. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump to, Hungary or Slovakia at this point. So we were deciding if we were going to stay or go, but it was very quiet there. I've never heard an air alarm like the couple months I was there until I finally made a trip to Lviv. And during the first air alarm in Lviv, I looked around, I was like so scared. Like, what do I do? Where's like the basement, the Ukritia? And then I saw people just nonchalant, just like walking around. And it just so wild to me to see how people got used to this war so quickly and all these air alarms. But I ended up staying. I left the country for some periods of time, but I would always come back every 3 months. I was in Portugal and I would come back. Long story short, but I ended up moving back to Ukraine like full time in 2023, the end of 2023, and I moved to Odessa, and it was very loud there. And I stayed there for about a year, and then I moved back to Kyiv like a year and a half ago, something like this.
How the war has changed you not only as a journalist, but also as a person?
You know what? It's almost the 4th year of the war, and I forgot what normal life is like. I feel like that's the big thing. I haven't left Ukraine in about a year and a half, and I'm so used to when there's air alarms, we need to do a certain thing. There's curfew, so I need to be home by a certain time. And I've gotten used to this, and it's starting to fade from my memory of what life was like before the war. And it's just really sad because this is not life. It's hard to live under these circumstances. Ukrainian people do live, and you see people living a somewhat normal life, but it's not normal here. And it's just so sad that I've become accustomed to this, and I just, change as a person. Just, I can identify, explosion sounds. I can identify threat levels when I look at Telegram groups saying like, okay, there's like Shaheds coming, there's ballistic missiles, there's a MiG flying around. I can identify, okay, we should go to the basement for this. We should go to the hallway for this. We should really, prepare to leave because there might be, I don't know, it's just so crazy, all this stress that you have to deal with, and you just not even think about it. It's like second nature. I don't know, I guess my life has changed like this, and I've changed into a person like that. I don't know, I'm becoming more, I don't want to use the word trauma, but I just feel like there is like some internal trauma inside, and sometimes it comes out. But like for example, I meet a lot of people. I work human stories, and I met this unit. They wanted me to, or this family of this units that a lot of them disappeared, missing in action. Maybe they're POWs. Maybe they haven't found their bodies yet. But they invited me to film with them and do some car rally around Kyiv. And I went and I was talking to, it was like mostly women, and they were just telling their story like to me. I talked to my husband last, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He said he was coming home. He didn't come home. We lost contact. They said he might be a POW, he might not be, but we're holding hope. We're holding out hope that he'll come back. We have a kid. We're not wealthy. We live, on the outskirts of Kyiv, and we just don't know what to do. Like, he was the breadwinner. We don't know what to do. And so I was talking to all these people, and I feel like I'm a strong person, but when I was telling the story to someone else, I was just telling it normally. Yeah, I met this group, this family that they're looking for their loved ones, and out of nowhere, I just start tearing up. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like, it doesn't usually happen. And I'm just thinking like, wow, this trauma that I have inside of me, and it's nothing compared to what those people are going through or what other people are going through. But it's so crazy how this kind of changes a person, subconsciously even. And this is, after meeting those people, this is one of the reasons why I want to tell stories, because it's very important to see what Ukrainian people are going through. And it's the reality. It's very sad. It's very grim. Yeah.
And you know about the stories about the cities, especially in Kiev region, which were occupied in the first days of the full-scale war. Russian propagandists keep telling us that it's all fake, that they did not torture Ukrainians, and there were no war crimes at all from their side. Maybe I know that maybe some foreigners who will watch this interview also heard these messages, and for them, especially if they have zero opportunities to visit Ukraine, maybe it's hard, to check whether it's true. But I know that you visited these cities, and maybe you have the message to the people, basically to prove that.
Well, so like I said before, I used to live in Kozybinsky, Irpin and Bucha. I'm familiar with those cities. I used to go there, not a lot, but maybe once every a few months to take care of some, my doctor's office was in Bucha. I had to do my tax ID, tax documents in Irpin. So I'm familiar. I had friends in the area. I'm very familiar. And I've been back multiple times. I've done a video report for Kiev Post about it, especially kind of this it was called a propaganda tour, because this is what J.D. Vance called it. You take people on this propaganda tour to these areas. But it's sick and disgusting what Russia did there. I have a friend, his name is Christopher Ochakon. He is a photojournalist here in Ukraine, American. He's been here since 2014, since the ATO, and he's been with Azov, Pravy Sector at the time. And he was one of the first photojournalists to be in Irpin and Bucha once it was deoccupied. And he told me stories that I will never forget. He was saying, Corrie, I was asking him, what was it like here? When you first came? He's like, dude, there was bodies everywhere. There was bodies over there, bodies over there. There was a dog walking with an arm in his mouth. It was disgusting. There was holes in the bullet holes in this playground area. It was disgusting. And then you see the photos, where there's blown up tanks and there's, bodies on the side of the road. It's absolutely real, and it's absolutely disgusting. And one of the stories, I don't know if, maybe I guess I'll say it. It's kind of a little graphic, but so he was saying when he was walking around doing photos, and then one of the locals came out and he said, oh, hey, if you want to do photos, I can show you some areas where the Russians, basically, they were taking over basements. And he goes, okay, yeah, look over there. There's 3 bodies there. And he would show them the bodies where people died. And then he would take him to he took him to this basement. And in the basement, there was blood everywhere. And there was, dead people outside. And the guy was saying this is where they would take the men and they would kill them. And there's this other place, this is where they would take the women, and they would do whatever they would want to do with the women, which is sexually assault them. And it's just disgusting, what this local was saying that he's seen with his own eyes. His family members have died. And my buddy Chris was telling me all of this. And Chris is an amazing journalist, and he's seen so much, and he wouldn't lie about something like this. It's absolutely real, and it's disgusting. And this is, I don't know, I just feel like Ukraine and Russia relations will never be the same after what happened in Bucha and Irpin, and the countless other areas that are being occupied right now. And I'm sure the same is happening there. It's just underreported because no journalists are able to go there and record the truth.
Well, indeed, and unfortunately now we are at that stage where the US is trying to, stop this war. I mean, of course, for Ukraine really wants to stop this war, but Ukraine also wants to see lasting peace for its country and for its citizens. And especially we want to see the consequences for Russia, the accountability for their war crimes. And I think now journalists are discussing this peace plan. We don't know, it's 28 or 20-point peace plan. Every time we have different versions. Maybe as an American, you can share what's your take on that.
Okay, first it started with this, was it 28-point peace plan? It was the one that Witkoff proposed. And then there was some intercepted phone call where apparently he was working with some Russian diplomats. They gave him the 28-point peace plan. He just, without even editing it or maybe even reviewing it properly, he just gave it to Trump and they were talking about it right away. So first of all, it wasn't even drafted by the US. It was drafted by Russia, as far as I understand. And, Europe and Zelensky and Ukraine, they're trying to adjust it to make it to this 20-point peace plan that actually has Ukraine's sovereignty in mind. And I just feel what Russia wants to do and what Ukraine wants to do, their goals are diametrically opposites, opposed. Russia, they want all of Ukraine, or they want it to be satellite puppet states of Russia, similar to what Belarus. So basically no sovereignty. Ukraine wants sovereignty. And Ukraine is not willing to give up their sovereignty to Russia, and Russia is not willing to let Ukraine have sovereignty or any security guarantees that are worth their weight and actually, having Ukraine be defended if Russia decides to attack again. Because any peace right now is not peace. It's basically capitulation, and it's kicking the can down the road. Because when it came to Donbass and Crimea, we thought it was peace as well with these Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Russia always broke it. But we thought it was peace as well. Okay, whatever, we don't control that area. We want it back, but there's nothing we can do right now. So Russia wants peace. We don't want our people to die. And then Russia invaded again. Now we're at the same stage. People say, don't you want Ukrainians to stop dying? Sure, I would love Ukrainians to stop dying. But more will die in the future if we just decide to draw the lines where they are. Russia will they don't want Ukraine to have sovereignty. They don't want any solid security guarantees. And I believe Zelensky came out recently and he said, even if we get security guarantees from the EU, we still need the US to be involved because the security guarantees from the EU are not as strong without US backing as well. So US needs to be involved, and unfortunately we have an administration that has gone rogue. They care, they don't really care about Ukraine's interests, but they also don't really care about the American interests as well. The administration just cares about their personal interests. And I just feel that the only side the US will pick is who has the most money. And right now Russia has the most money. If US decides on peace in Ukraine, then and Russia says, okay, if you give us this peace plan, maybe they talk behind closed doors, and if you agree on this peace plan, then you will have all these mineral rights to whatever is occupied. Maybe there's some kickbacks that we're not aware of. But if you actually defend Ukraine's sovereignty, what does the US get? Probably not as much as what Russia is willing to offer. And unfortunately, this administration is being sold to the highest bidder. And I really despise that about the current government in the US. Because we as people, I'm from California, maybe I live in a bubble or something, but these aren't the values that I grew up with. I was a very patriotic person growing up. It's crazy what we went through as children. We would have to say the Pledge of Allegiance every day, look at a flag in the classroom when we were kids. And I used to love celebrating the 4th of July. I used to wear America clothes, America hats, light fireworks, have barbecues. I used to love 4th of July. And with everything that's going on in the US right now, I don't really like celebrating 4th of July anymore. I feel kind of a little ashamed to be an American. I'm not going to say I'm Canadian or anything to people that ask. I'll say I'm American, sure, but I just feel a bit ashamed. It's really sad that the government of the US is just abandon Ukraine and not defend their sovereignty.
Well, that's actually very interesting to hear, especially about values. And as a journalist here in Ukraine, I would like also to ask you, maybe, do you see a risk of if this peace plan would be agreed, do you see a risk of another potential aggression from the Russian side, not only on Ukraine, but also on European states?
Yeah, of course I see it. There was Minsk 1, Minsk 2. Russia broke them both. Who's to say they were not going to break this one? But all this does is just give Russia a time to regroup and reload. You replenish their stockpiles, build more weapons. Maybe they won't invade any country in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, it took them, how many years? 5 years after Donbass and Crimea for them to invade again. So they'll just reload. And when it comes to the Baltic countries, they're a target as well. They're small. Their military isn't that big. They should start fortifying their borders now, because with so much bureaucracy in the EU and with NATO just up in the air, is the US going to come and defend any Russian aggression on NATO countries? Then Russia can just go in, take the land, and by the time the EU and NATO decides what they want to do, Russia will already have that area. They will already have that land, and it's really hard to retake an area that is already taken. We see how hard it is with Ukraine trying to take back Donbass. So imagine the same thing just in the Baltics. And, with it unclear if the U.S. is going to provide support to retaking this land, then I see that Russia can totally do this.
Maybe last question, and to end our interview in the positive note. I follow your Instagram and TikTok account, and I know that many of my friends also do. And you are showing everyday life in Ukraine, especially for foreigners. I would like to ask you about their feedback, and maybe you can also share in the end of the interview maybe top 3 things that surprised you most and you love most about Ukraine.
Okay, so my social media it started to grow, and whenever I look at people's social media, like foreign people talking about Ukraine, it's always, not always, but a lot of times it's negative, talking about the war and, talking about military. And, that's very important to talk about. But I actually think Ukraine has a very cool and interesting culture, and they have a really good sense of humor here. So I wanted to, highlight all of that as a foreign person in Ukraine. And so first I started off doing videos talking about the history, the rich history you guys have here, and the culture, but just in a funny way. Then I expanded that into making memes about how much Ukrainian people love smetana and zhivchik even, stuff like this. So it's really, I don't know, and Ukrainian people, they were really receptive to it. And especially the ones abroad, they wanted to show their friends, because my content is in English. So they wanted to show their friends about Ukrainian culture, history, some memes, some jokes. And I was the perfect kind of account to do that. And I know I'm still making content to this day about all this. But when it comes to, you said top 3, I guess, cultural differences. What was the question?
A thing which you like most in Ukraine and surprised you most.
Top 3 things I like most and also surprised. Okay, first, I'm surprised at... Okay, first, this is I'm not throwing shade or talking bad about the US, but I'm surprised when I first came to Ukraine, how fit people are here in Ukraine. Everyone, in the US, people are kind of overweight, and I just got used to it after a while. But when I came to Ukraine, I'm like, wow, everyone is so fit. It kind of motivates me. I want to maybe walk around more, exercise, because people here are so fit. I don't know, it's so unreal. And whenever I go back to the US, I see the difference right away. But I get used to it after a while. But people here are so fit, and I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at myself, okay, I need to maybe cover myself up, maybe hit the gym a bit more. But yeah, that's, the food culture, it's very rich. I love all of these traditions, and the traditions surprise me a lot. For example, my girlfriend and I were doing the 12 dishes this year. So we're making, the kutia, the vareniki, and I really love these traditions, and, wearing the vyshyvankas, I love that. Ivana Kupala, I love celebrating all of these holidays, because in the US, we don't really have these traditions. They're all commercialized these days. 4th of July was fun, but basically we're just lighting fireworks, having a barbecue. Over here, Ivana Kupala, they're lighting stuff on fire and jumping over it and wearing these headdresses. I don't know. And, was it Maslenitsa? Yeah, I was there at, I think it was Botanical Garden, and they have this effigy of this kind of, what is it, this Vidma? I don't know.
Yeah, something like
Yeah, it's witch or something. And then they light it on fire and they all dance around it. And to me, it's so interesting to me. It surprised me, and I love it. So that's 2. And also, what surprised me a lot was how diverse geographically Ukraine is. There's so much there's mountains here. Sure, it's not like the I don't know, like the Andes, or it's not like the Sierra Nevada mountains in the US or the Alps in Western Europe, but they do have mountains, the Carpathians. So you guys have mountains. You have access to the sea. you have rivers, and also in the Kherson region, it's a lot of this is occupied right now. You had this beautiful pink lake. It's pink due to the salt, and then also the Oleshki Sands. It's like this big desert. I don't know. The country is so diverse, and I really love this because before the war, I used to vacation in Skadovsk, and Skadovsk is in the Kherson region, and now it is occupied. And there was an island there. It was a meme. People called it the Ukrainian Maldives. And so I used to go there all the time. The water was clear. It wasn't that warm, but it wasn't that cold either. And, it was just like this fine sands there. And my ex and I, we used to vacation there, like camp there with tents for a week. And we did this, 2 summers leading up to the war. And I loved it so much. Only thing I didn't love so much was there a lot of jellyfish everywhere. Yeah, and that was a problem. But it surprised me how geographically or diverse Ukraine is. There's basically everything here. Sure, it's the biggest country fully in Europe, but you don't expect that from such a country. I really miss vacationing in Skadovsk and vacationing in Zharohach, and I'll leave it at this. Once the war is over, I want to go back to my vacation spots. I can't go right now because Russians there, but once the war is over, I'm looking forward to going back to my vacation spots and camping on that same beach and swimming with all the jellyfish. I will swim with them this time. And I invite you and I invite you guys to come join me on a beach on the Ukrainian Maldives in Zharohach Island near Skadovsk in Kherson Oblast.
And we invite all of our viewers to one day visit Ukraine, and maybe also your blog will tell them more about Ukrainian culture. And Corrie, thank you for this interview and for your support and advocacy for Ukraine.
Of course. And if you guys want to follow me on all my social medias, it's at Corrie.ua. So it's Instagram, it's Threads, but Twitter it's Corrie_UA. But either way, Corrie UA, that's who I am. And thank you so much for having me. It was been a pleasure chatting with you, Sofia. And I seriously do invite you, when the war is over, vacation in Zharohach. We'll go to Skadovsk, pick up some jellyfishes, then we go to Zharohach, okay?
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed, okay. Let's shake on it.